And if you're able to do any of this in some way, even attempting it, notice what it feels like inside to be with this place that way. Just take time to notice how it feels to treat this place in yourself that way. And then sometimes as we take time to not push those places inside ourselves that are hard to be with until something changes and we start to care for them this way, then they start to tell us something. A memory comes in from the past, a word maybe a phrase, maybe words from a song, poem, memory from our childhood, intellectual insight. Something comes in that seems to fit the way it feels when I hold this place and don't push it away. Something seems to connect and you can feel it in your body. Kind of rightness, like, oh, this is part of this whole thing, or this connects or resonates, or somehow feels like it fits. I don't understand it, but it somehow feels like it belongs to this whole thing. That image, that picture, that memory, that something. And then it begins to change inside. Just like you can notice when you don't push things away that you thought were going to destroy you, or you're going to fall to pieces if you own them inside. Instead, what happens when you really embrace them, you can feel the sense of relief. Kind of like coming home. So after you've taken a little time to get the feel of this inside, you want to start to learn tonight how you end sessions like this. How do we do that in a way that doesn't disconnect us? Well, first of all, you want to notice whether anything inside seems to have changed physically in the feel of it in any way. If there's any sense of that rightness in perhaps something that's come and connected. So if you notice any of that inside, you always want to take time to just be in the feel with whatever way feels right for you that says thank you. Just a moment of gratitude. Whatever's real but unfinished, always promise it that you'll come back to it. Then when you're ready, you can stop.
If the sound of your voice in the night is keeping you from listening to me, hear me whisper in the silence of your heart. This is what I'm calling you to be. May you be real, be free, be worthy of me. Be yourself, because you are the person I love. May you be real, be free, be worthy of me. Be yourself, because you are the person I love.
Let me just read you what St. Paul wrote to the Ephesians about what we're really doing and working with together in ourselves this week. And in his first letter to the Ephesians, he wrote, I pray that your inward eyes may be illumined, so that you may know in your body what is the hope to which you are called, and how vast the resources of power open to those who trust. I pray that your inward eyes, like the knowing capacity of our bodies, the eyes of our bodies, so that you may know, and that word know there is very clearly distinguished between head knowing and body knowing. In the Greek word, that's to know in your body. That's why I used that translation, that you may know in your gut, in your body, what is the hope to which you are called, and how vast the resources of power, of grace, life that are open to those who trust. And that text could be really the theme of these whole days and of focusing, what the spirituality of focusing is all about. It's very well summed up in a number of different texts that Paul speaks of, because he, more than any of the other authors of texts, is very, very conscious, because this is a post-Christ time in the church. Christ is the person, the individual Christ is now no longer there. Like, how do we experience this Christ? How do we know that hope, that resurrection, that possibility of being in touch with this continuing presence of God in the body that was with us as this man for a period of time? And he's constantly telling the Christians, as I'm saying the same thing, that it's in your own body that you will sense and feel that presence, that continuing presence. We are, as Paul says so often, the body of Christ. We are the living membranes. Too often times when we read that text, we think of, well, that's often translated as members. So we think, well, we're all members of the Lions Club or the Rotary Club, or we belong to Benedictine community or this community, or whatever. It's St. Leo's Church or something, like a collection, like you'd put all jelly beans in a bag. And that's not what Paul means at all. We are living cells, conscious, capable of being conscious, of being connected to the whole body. And the blood and the lifeline and the life force of that body is part of our ability to be aware of that presence. But we can't do it if we're stuck from the chin on up here. And that's basically the problem in the church and in Western civilization. We're stuck in just that knowing capacity. It doesn't mean to denigrate head knowledge or to say that intellectual or conceptual or rational knowledge is something that is wrong with it. No. It's only just a small portion, literally, from the chin on up, of our capacity to know who we are and to know God. So, of course, in a non-literate society where Paul lived, and until 200 or 300 years ago, that was the only way people knew how to plant their crops and knew how to function in the world, was through their bodies. And they're still what we would call primitive, but we now realize they're not really primitive at all. They're far more whole people, little segments and tribes and cultures here and there that still function that way. But they know that the knowing capacity of the things that really count in life, what is the meaning of life and death and birth, and this sense that we have of being part of some larger plan or some larger body or some larger presence or something more in life that we give names to, like God or like Buddha consciousness, or names that we don't know how to properly identify and that don't really even say it, but we feel it. And we all know that, but yet we don't appreciate what has really happened to us in the last, since the time of the Enlightenment, 1700s. How we have been systematically placed layers and layers of what we call education and Western civilization, just like plastering an old house with all this stuff. And how religion has fallen right into that whole trap of plastering these layers and layers of concepts and perceptions of reality over our basic human capacity to sense and feel and touch and taste and smell the reality of God, as St. Ignatius says in his exercises. That's exactly what Peter and I are doing to mostly probably a Christian group here. They're saying, we're here to tell you that your own body is that temple within which, when you enter into that in worship or in reverence and learn how to listen to and how to be in yourself honoring that temple, you will find that you're in a sacred place of worship and in a place where you can sense and feel and touch and taste and smell that presence and that goodness of God.
And if your worship is but meaningless sound, and your gestures are empty of me, and your words just fall like dust upon the ground, this is what I'm calling you to be. May you be real, be free, be worthy of me, be yourself.
So I think there's a simple kind of gesture that could sum up what we were saying last night, and in a lot of ways it sums up this week. And it's teaching you to go from doing this, pushing away, what's real, whatever is real inside you, to going like this. From pushing away to embracing the truth of yourself. And when you go like this, what happens is that it goes like this, and you connect. You connect. Your body connects with this larger body. Our consciousness isn't apart from that. We know we're part of some larger body, some larger organism, some larger process happening. And when we connect, there are two resources in that body, which we've named in all different traditions, in all different philosophies for millennia. And one is that there is an energy in that body. And we connect with that energy, and suddenly we feel invigorated, or like someone's pumped gas into us, and now the motor can run. Something has happened, and we feel a life force. In Christianity, we call that grace. And we have a lot of theology written about the body of Christ, and there's no salvation outside the church, and on and on. All kinds of theologies developed about getting plugged in, as Paul would put it, so that we are open to the resources of power to those who trust plugging in. Then there's a second thing there, and it's the information. There's a consciousness that comes to us of how we can live in harmony, of what the direction of life is about, of how when we destroy other people and the world around us, the environment around us, that we are destroying our own bodies because we're living cells of this kind of consciousness of the connection of all things that is the only way that we can have peace, the only way we can have an environmental movement that makes sense. It has to be part of the consciousness of human beings. And in Christianity we call that revelation. So we have names for it, and other religions have other names for those two resources that are there. And they're vital.
And the most important thing to realize is that we can't connect or have any kind of a sense for this larger body unless we have a connection and a sense for our own body. Our own body is the point of connection. How do you involve your own body in your believing, in your life of faith, in your life of spirit? You see, it's only by this connection, this covenant with your own body being firmly established, that you have the ground in your knowing for being connected to the life of spirit, to the body life of spirit, and to a larger body. See, we've been brought up in a framework where we talk about mental prayer, as though the way to connect with God is with your mind mentally, and the rest of you is just kind of baggage that's there to support this head, so that this head can go around and make all these wonderful connections, and the body's just really there as an appendage to make that possible. And the whole point of the incarnation, the being in, the having one's being within, is that our bodies themselves are the doorway, the hinge of the connection to the larger body.
So that when we use the word body, used to using it in the sense that it's really meant to be understood, when we use body, my body, with a small b, or people's bodies, it's really always this. In reality, it's that. No way that this exists apart from that, no way that that exists apart from you.
And if your life is a jumble of baggage that's weighing you down, can't you see? My yoke is easy, my burden is light, and this is what I'm calling you to be. May you be real, be free, be worthy of me.
Some important learnings, just simple things that we can understand, and that in a way you can translate it into the language of your children if you have kids at home or friends or groups that are working with you, and give examples of it from your own experience. Our bodies know things as well as our heads. And it's just that simple thing. Yeah, sure they do. How does your body tell you when it knows something that your head doesn't yet know? Feelings, right. You feel anxious, you feel nervous, you can't go to sleep at night, you feel worried. We have all kinds of words for that. that are the signals that your body's trying to say something that your head doesn't yet know. And most of us don't know what to do with that except run to the fridge or turn away or do the things we talked about last night. So we're learning a new language in a sense, like learning French or German or something if you're not familiar with those languages. They're new sounds to listen to, new ways of understanding the communication of our bodies. They speak to us through the feelings, the sensations, the felt senses. How do I let my body tell its stories? By learning a special way of caring for, holding, and listening to my body's language, which is what focusing is. And this special way is called focusing. So sometimes we try to graph it this way.
See, if this were an iceberg, you know how there's a little bit of the iceberg above the water and a lot below the water. Okay, the little bit above the water in terms of how we know as a body, or body knowing, are simple things that we recognize. Emotions. I know when I'm angry or sad or jealous or confused or lonely. The feelings. And then body sensations. Grumble in my tummy, sweaty palms, a flush in my face. You know, there's body sensations and there's feelings, and we recognize these and we know them. But also, in addition to that, there are times when I know that something's wrong. I walk into a room and everybody's talking and they all stop talking as soon as I walk into the room. You know, I know something's off, but I don't know what it is that's off. I don't know what's wrong, I just know that something is wrong. That's what Dr. Jenlin is referring to as a whole range of knowing that is more than emotions. I know when I'm angry, I know when I'm sad, I know when I'm scared, I know when I have sweaty palms. But there's also sometimes when I know that something's off, but I don't know what it is. So what we find is that in the whole world where we know that, we don't know what. We call this the world of the more in you, or the story that's waiting to unfold in your feelings. And this entire world here, Dr. Jenlin refers to technically in his own work as what he calls a felt sense. So that's what this area is about. Focusing is a way to go through the doorway of what you know on the surface and down into that more of the story. And the most important thing is that the direction to the story, the more of the story, is to go into the feelings, not to go away from them. As soon as you go away from them, you move into the kinds of things that you become addicted to. But when you can go into the feeling, and the best analogy I can give you is when you're driving a car and you start to skid, the way you stop the skid is you turn into the skid.
What I found is that when people move down into the more of the story and it was scary, then they whipped right back out again. And that's why we started with the exercises and why we'll work all day today and most of tomorrow, in fact probably most of the 6 days. If you simply learn only one thing in these 6 days, how to stay down in what you've run away from, or you've been taught not to own.